The family of the murdered Tshegofatso Pule are saying that her convicted murderer, Ntuthuko Shoba, should receive the harshest possible sentence due to his lack of remorse. In mitigation of sentence earlier, Shoba's lawyer argued against calls for a life sentence. The court's adjourned to tomorrow for sentencing after hearing arguments today. Our reporter Linda Mnisi was there. He joins me now in studio. Linda, good afternoon to you. There are various things. There's the legal arguments going through all of this. The legal arguments also must be having an impact on the family of Tshegofatso. I mean, I can't imagine how they're feeling watching this.
Absolutely, given the fact that they're anticipating that this would be the end, right? It's right at the end of the trial. They've heard, what happened, and of course they now want the sentence to be handed down. But if you're if sitting there listening to the lawyers arguing for a lesser sentence, in fact saying that there should be parity in the sentences. You'll remember there's Mitigation, who's the convicted killer in this case. He got 20 years. He got a 20-year jail term. And the lawyers are arguing, basically, that Ntuthuko Shoba should also be given, a similar a sentence because, of course, there was equal participation in this particular matter. And that's one of the things that the family is unhappy about because, you'll remember that this kind of offense, premeditated murder, the prescribed minimum sentence for that is life, and that's what they're calling for, right? Let's take a listen to what they have to say.
I heard that, and for a while I was taken aback by those submissions, especially the fact that there mustn't be a disparity between the sentences. But when you look at the whole principle, it's a general principle, but at the same time you need to state the reasons why the principle should not be applied. And it's different. If you look at the case of how Malipane was convicted and sentenced and how Mr. Shoba was convicted and sentenced, first and foremost, Mr. Malipane pleaded. There was a confession, of course, we know the story behind the whole confession issue, and then there was a 105 plea agreement. And he agreed, and that's why he was convicted and sentenced after the plea bargain. That's number one. Number two, there was a sense of remorse from Mr. Malipane. Not only, if you recall, not only did he say he was sorry, but he even handed us a note as a family asking for his forgiveness, which we did say, no, we're fine, we accept your apology. But now let us just flip the coin with regard to Mr. Shoba. We didn't see that. Even till today, after he was convicted with the crime, he still maintains his innocence.
So that's Newzroom Afrika, the uncle of Tshegofatso Pule there, Stephen, explaining the difference in these two cases because obviously they were trialed differently, and in the other one we had a plea agreement where Mitigation took responsibility for what he did. In this case they're arguing that there wasn't any of that, and that speaks to, of course, issues around remorse. Was there remorse? You'll remember he pleaded not guilty. Even after conviction, Ntuthuko Shoba maintains his innocence. And the judge was asking, does this aggravate, the circumstances here? Does this aggravate the case because he did not plead guilty? And his defense is saying no, because he was exercising his constitutional right of, pleading not guilty. So that cannot and should not be used against him. But the state is arguing that, the issue of remorse, while it does not aggravate the circumstances or the situation here, what it does, it speaks to rehabilitation. Will he be rehabilitated going into prison? And does this then mean that the judge can just deter or, deviate from the prescribed minimum sentence? And well, what came out also was the issue around, from that particular discussion, was the issue around how he says what Ntuthuko Shoba did, or the lawyers arguing that what he did was out of character. So speaking about his previous life, that he led a good life, so what he did in this case was out of character, and that the judge should consider that in handing down his sentence. Let's take a listen to the reaction from the Tshegofatso Pule Foundation around the issue of character.
But the most part, you must also remember that it goes hand in hand with the sympathy. And after the anguish that you've put us through as a family, there should be some sense of sympathy that you show that, listen, I am sorry for what I have done. It's one of the aspects that I think should be taken into consideration. The only thing is the fact that he maintains his innocence, and even after the conviction, he still maintains his innocence. It's his constitutional right. But we're talking about the emotions that he has caused us as a family, which are not written on the Constitution.
Oh my God! I think that is one thing that threw everybody off guard, really. For them to claim that it was out of character, I was actually saying, it would be really naive of us to come here and not expect the defense to not have an ace up their sleeve. It's been in Shoba's true nature from when we were still in the regional court, so it was something that would be expected. But over and above, it's still it's just a drop in the ocean. It's gravy, really. It does not matter at all. What is done has been done. I think this just takes us back to how he continued to ridicule Tshego's name during the trial, and how he continued to just treat everything as though it was, for him, nothing mattered. There was no remorse. There was no ounce of feeling sorry at all. So for us, we just stand at saying we still push a double life sentence, and we still push for a harsher sentence. He deserves it.
It's really interesting. I mean, there must be limits to how far this argument that it was out of character could go. So he killed one person, possibly two if you consider the circumstances. What if he had killed 10?
Yeah, and Stephen, it actually brings me back to one of the arguments that were being had in court around, the degree of participation and who did what. And the state arguing that he is the prime mover in all of this, saying that without him, the killer, Muzigaisa Malepane, wouldn't have done this, because you'll also remember during trial we heard that the killer did not know Tshegofatso Pule, so the chances of them even communicating were almost non-existent. So he is the person, that basically is the mastermind around all of this. So the state then saying, because of that, because if he wasn't there, if he did not push for this, if it wasn't Malepane, it could have been someone else. He could have asked someone else, to carry out the hit.
Linda Mnisi, thank you very much indeed, as always, for an update on that story. Do appreciate it. We'll